All Verse Rising, Soul Family, All Verse Rising. And I'm going to talk about how evil a lot of melanated women in Washington, D.C. are narcissists. Very toxic, very fucking evil, man. Like, whatever you do, if you a melanated man and you're interested in melanated women, avoid melanated women in Washington, D.C. Because melanated women who grew up in Washington, D.C., they have hatred towards melanated men, especially those melanated women who consider themselves like studs or dykes or whatever. Oh, they the worst ones in Washington, D.C. because we all know melanated women who are studs and dykes, they be the main females who associate with Johnny Law, aka the Ops, aka the Pigs, aka the Ku Klux Klan police European pilgrim system. So like, you know, Washington DC women, man, and most particularly melanated women in Washington DC, man, they not worth the energy. Because let me tell you something, man. There's been a lot of guys who experience melanated women in Washington DC, or just women who say they're from Washington, D.C. And guess what? As soon as a guy, you know, shows a lot of soulful vibrational frequencies to her, oh, a lot of melanated women in Washington, D.C., especially the melanated women who consider themselves studs and lesbian dykes and shit, man, they want to be calling the cops on other soulful vibrational men that show them good energy. But with melanated women, especially these trifling melanated women in Washington, D.C. who are lesbians or studs or some shit like that, when it comes to the bad boys, oh, they don't call the cops on them. It's very fucking sad, is it? You know, melanated women in Washington, D.C., you know, they're toxic. And the reason why, look at where Washington, D.C. is located. Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital in corporate USA, which is owned by European slave owners. We all know USA is owned by European slave owners. Everybody knows this. And to make matters worse, Washington, D.C. is known for the White House, which is known as so-called white supremacy. So what makes you think melanated women in Washington, D.C. are all for melanated men? They're not. You know, that's something that I learned through my experience. I learned through my experience with Washington, D.C. women. Melanated women in Washington, D.C., from my own personal experience and also secondhand experience and seeing how melanated men get screwed over by melanated women in Washington, D.C., is due to that white supremacy whitewashing that melanated women get so indoctrinated by from the day they were birthed. They grew up in Washington, D.C., and guess what? They started putting child support on melanated men out there. And then they also lie on melanated men, saying they stalking them and shit like that. And these melanated men don't even be thinking about them like that because of how trifling they are. You know what I'm saying? Any melanated woman who tells you she's from Washington, D.C., or bro, avoid her at all costs. She associates with Johnny Law, aka the Ops, aka the 12, the Pigs, the Ku Klux Klan police pilgrim system, whatever you want to call whitewashed melanated females who just have hate towards spiritually awake melanated men. So like, melanated women to avoid on planet Earth are the ones out in Washington, D.C. Please do so for your own safety, because melanated women that say they're from Washington, D.C., they'll put you through some fucking bullshit drama stress for many months in and months out. Especially them damn melanated lesbians out in Washington, D.C. that associate with Johnny Law, aka the Ops, the Pigs, the Ku Klux Klan pilgrim police system. Because melanated women in Washington, D.C., they are not for melanated people. They're too whitewashed. They're too far gone. They don't know themselves. These are all facts, soul family. It's like the best melanated women you can deal with are the ones who grew up in the African countries or the Caribbean countries. That's where a lot of the best melanated women are at. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. You know these are all facts. You know? Let me tell you something. I'd rather deal with melanated women in California before I ever deal with melanated women in Washington, D.C. You know? At least melanated women in California, well, especially in the Bay Area locations, melanated women in the Bay Area locations in California, at least they are filled with the spirit of Khalifa. At least melanated women in California are filled with the spirit of Empress Khalifa, aka Queen Khalifa. So that's all you need to know. But that's all I gotta tell y'all.